Hello again, I'm Bill Wagner.
And I'm James Sturdivant.
So let's review what we did in this particular exercise. There's very little code, but we want to talk about the concepts and the way we got to the point where we decided what very little code to write here.
And I think even though there's very little code in this particular instance, it actually speaks quite a bit of volume to what your design and what you're trying to get across to other developers.
Right. So right now, if we look at the code, I've got a total of four different classes that we created. We've got the person, the student, the teacher, and the teaching assistant. Well, 3 of those are concrete. We already instantiate students, teachers, and teaching assistants. Student is interesting because it's both a base class and a derived class, right? So student derives from person, and we create it, and teaching assistant derives from student. So, maybe I'd like the idea of student being abstract, but that really doesn't make sense. Now I would have to introduce some new class that is a student that's not a TA. That didn't feel like it made any sense to me at all. So I said, all right, so a student class, well, okay, so it's a non-leaf, non-abstract class, which at least is something I want to review. I don't necessarily want to make everything non-abstract, but I want to at least review it and think about it. But the only one that really ended up having a point of being abstract is this idea of a person class. Nothing in our model so far creates an actual person object. And I thought about that a little bit, and I thought about, well, would we ever create a person object without any other capabilities? And the only thing in there right now is that ID and the first and last name. I really didn't think that was going to be a useful abstraction. And I made the guess, thinking of the future, that no matter how this grows, I'm never going to create this type of thing. I'm either going to enhance it with other behavior, enhance more classes around it with other behavior, and I didn't think I'd ever actually create it. So that said, well, I think I'll put the abstract keyword on it now. And at least for right now, no developer can make one of these.
Yeah.
Right?
And because of that, I noticed that you put the constructor as protected there.
Right. So now since I can't instantiate it at all, it kind of makes no sense to have a public constructor on an abstract class because I can't instantiate it. So I made the constructor protected. It can only be called by derived classes. Okay. So it's just a little bit of a just hiding the fact that there's a constructor there because you can't call it anyway. At least not directly. You can only call it from a derived class. So it's just another way to say I really don't think you should be instantiating this. So again, not a lot of code. And again, at the moment we have still a relatively small project. But the idea of just thinking through exactly and being deliberate in our design decisions, and then leveraging the language features to say that if this was my design decision, I am going to express it in such a way that the language supports what I was thinking when I wrote the code and communicates it to other developers, and hopefully keeps other developers from misusing the type because I didn't intend for you to do certain things with it. I don't intend for you to create a person object, so I won't let you. Right? And with that, we'll take another break. We'll be back after a bit, and we'll introduce one of the really interesting concepts. We're going to leave this idea of inheritance and polymorphism, and we're going to work on by working with generics and some of the other techniques that we use to build programs other than just inheritance. See you soon.